What do you think of J.K. Rowling's position on trans women?
I don't agree with it.
Why?
Because I think trans women are women and trans men are men.
Do you think that trans women who haven't undergone surgery should be allowed in women's toilets, for example?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, I believe, listen...
And you're happy for trans women,
the Liberal Democrats...
pre-op trans women in women's prisons as well?
Yeah, because I think some of the arguments that are put against this, I just don't understand the facts and the experience. You know, trans people are some of the most discriminated against in our society. They suffer violence, they suffer harassment, and if you're in favour of equality, as I am, I'm in favour of equality for everyone in the LGBT plus community and everyone in the black and ethnic minority community. No holds barred. You know, one of the reasons I'm a liberal is because I want to treat every individual with respect. And that's why I'm afraid I disagree with J.K. Rowling.
What about the women who do not think that this is right, that they feel threatened, their space feels threatened by the presence of a man in a woman's loo with a penis?
Well, listen, I've spoke to constituents who have that view. I've listened to them, and I've listened to them with respect and patience. I don't agree with them.
What is wrong with this phrase, woman, adult, human, female?
Well, Liberal Democrats believe that trans rights are really important because trans people are some of the most discriminated against in our society today. Huge health problems, high suicide rate, and I think everybody ought to worry about that. The real issue, I think, is the toxification of the debate. There was a time.
What's wrong with that phrase? Woman, adult, human, female.
I've made it clear what our position is on trans rights. No one can criticise me for that. What I'm concerned about is on this issue, we have been working cross-party in the past. I've worked with Conservative MPs who agree with me, Labour MPs who agree with me. What's changed is Boris Johnson coming to number 10. Boris Johnson has toxified this debate. He set up a culture war unit in number 10.
We've jumped from a phrase to Boris Johnson. I do want to come back to this phrase. What is wrong with the phrase? Can you explain to people watching what is wrong with the phrase woman, adult, human, female? What's wrong with that?
Well, I mean, the phrase actually doesn't really encapsulate the debate, to be honest. That's what's the problem with it. Is that a trans woman is a woman, a trans man is a man. And that is the issue that we're fighting on.
Because the reason I keep using that phrase, as I'm sure you know, is that one of your members, Natalie Bird, has been banned from standing as a Liberal Democrat in any circumstances for 10 years because she wore a T-shirt which had that slogan on it.
Well, we have complaints issues, which I'm not part of. They're totally independent, so I can't comment on an individual case. What I can say...
That is true, what I've just told you. That is true. And, you know, the Liberal Democrats used to be a tolerant, open party, keen for debate and keen above all for free speech. Now, you disagree with Natalie Bird, she disagrees with you, but with that single phrase, she has been cast out of your party.
Well,
that's not liberal, is it?
Well, we absolutely believe in free speech, but we also believe that we need to protect human rights and we believe in equality. And the reason I do keep coming back to Boris Johnson, I'm going to make no apologies for that.
I'm particularly interested in your views in this interview for obvious reasons. Do you think that everywhere in society, and I'm thinking of toilets, prisons, refuges, hospital wards, should be open to everybody, regardless of sex?
Well, if you're a trans man, you should be able to operate as a man.
So the answer is yes to my question.
Yes. I mean, we've made it very clear. And what we're concerned about is there does need to be a debate in wider society, and that debate is not being had because of Boris Johnson's failure to lead.
Natalie Bird, a former Liberal Democrat activist, has been banned from standing as a Liberal Democrat in any circumstances for 10 years because she wore a T-shirt with the slogan, woman, adult, human, female. Do you have an issue with the phrase woman, adult, human, female?
Well, that phrase in particular doesn't include trans women, of course. But I know nothing about that complaint because we have an independent complaints process within the Liberal Democrats, which MPs are not involved in and are not consulted in.
Yeah, but is it right? Is it right, that decision that's been made?
Well, without seeing all of the details of the complaints and the process, it would be impossible for me to say. But what I would say is that every time the Liberal Democrats are challenged on our position, we're very happy to say what our position is. We've said time and time again that we believe that trans rights are human rights, and that is our position. And I think it's important that the other political parties state their views, and that the Conservative Party actually does have questions to answer about why it's using a culture war unit in Number 10 to try and stir up these kind of polarised debates.
Well, I'll put that back to Tom in just a minute. I still don't quite know whether you do support the action that's been taken, that she's been banned from standing as a Liberal Democrat in any circumstances for 10 years because she wore a T-shirt. Is that right? Is that a decision you support?
As I say, I haven't seen all of the details of the complaint. I haven't seen all of the details of the judgment. There may well have been more or less information that was relevant to that case. Without seeing it, I'm not in a position to say. It's an independent complaints process.
Right, well, I mean, that's an important point, isn't it, Tom, in terms of whether people are actually fuelling the debate. Daisy has accused the Conservatives of pushing a culture war with its Number 10 unit. It's true, isn't it?
If Number 10 is setting up a unit in Number 10 to try and push back on some of the nonsense we've seen over the last few years, and to try and push back against some of the wokeification of key national charities and institutions, then I'd very much welcome that. I don't think that unit would have anything to do with, it wouldn't have, I can categorically say it wouldn't have anything to do with stirring up debates about transphobia. That's absolutely not the case, and that is an allegation with no merit or foundation whatsoever. In terms of this T-shirt worn by the Liberal Democrat, I believe she was a parliamentary candidate and now not. I don't know if I'm missing something. I don't see anything particularly offensive about what that message says on the T-shirt. It doesn't say anything anti any group. It just says probably what that person is and how they identify. I don't see a problem with that. And again, I really think the Liberal Democrats should consider whether the word liberal should be in their name.
Yesterday morning, Sir Ed Davey, the leader of the Lib Dems during the party's annual political conference, was asked by my colleague Andrew Marr about his party's policy on transgender rights. He specifically asked him, what is wrong with the phrase woman, adult, human, female? Should the Liberal Democrats be barring those from standing that they disagree with from holding party office?
I think it's a much more complicated situation than that, and I think that's an oversimplification.
Because many people listening to this programme will be asking, what is wrong with the phrase woman, adult, human, female? I've got text messages to that effect.
Well, what I understand is wrong with it is that it is seen by the trans community as being trans exclusionary and is used as a slogan by people who are opposed to trans rights. And where the Liberal Democrats stand is where we would stand for every minority. We stand up for them. We believe that we are all equally entitled to the protection of the law.
Do you believe people who are born a biological male should be allowed in female-only spaces like refuges and prisons?
I think it's important about protecting women. We've just been through in Parliament several years to get a domestic abuse bill on the legislation.
So the answer to that question is what? Do you believe people who are born a biological male should be allowed in female-only spaces?
Well, apart from the fact that I think we need to get away from that language, people who are women and who have identified as women,
with all due respect, you don't
be allowed to be in women's spaces.
With all due respect, you don't get to rewrite the questions. You do get to answer it. You do get to answer it. So is the answer to that question, because you may call it semantics, but this is the language of our life. And I'm trying to communicate with someone who wants to be in power. And people have a right to know, if they would want to vote for you, whether somebody who was born a biological male should be allowed in a female-only space, like a refuge, which is a very specific space.
Well,
yes or no?
If someone is going through gender reassignment, according to the Act, a trans woman who has gender reassignment is legally a woman.
So you believe yes?
If she doesn't, the Equality Act can be used to decide cases.
So the answer to the question...
Absolutely, I'm being absolutely clear. Someone who is regarded under the Equalities Act because of gender reassignment, regardless of what they were born biologically, what they are reassigned is their gender. If you are born a man and you go through your biological definition as a man and you're going through gender reassignment and you declare as a woman and you are going through that reassignment, then yes, you should be allowed in those spaces. For 30 years from now, we will be as horrified by this debate and the way we've behaved as we are about how we behaved in the 80s.
That's a big prediction about who you think will be horrified by what, but you've made it.
Does gender supersede biological sex?
Gender identity refers to our sense of who we are and how we see and describe ourselves as opposed to our biological sex. And in the news over the last couple of days, the transgender cyclist Emily Bridges, who used to compete as a man, won't be competing in this weekend's National Omnium Championships in what would have been her first women's event after a ruling by cycling's world governing body. Sir Ed Davey, first on this.
Well, for the vast majority of people, their gender matches their sex at birth. But there are a small number of people who feel that their gender is different. And I believe we should respect that. And the law in our country has respected that. For nearly 20 years, the Gender Recognition Act, passed nearly 20 years ago, allows people to change their gender, but it puts safeguards in to avoid abuse.
And Sir Ed, what about tricky questions, as I referred to in the case of the cyclist, around, for instance, trans athletes in sport and ensuring that it's fair to all competitors?
Well, I mean, you inevitably think about it through your own lives. I've got a young daughter. She's not into sport yet, into ballet. I think she might be into sport in due course. I hope if she competes, there'll be a level playing field. But for politicians or government to say what is a level playing field in a particular sport, I don't think that's a good idea. I think the sporting bodies who can assess this, because it may be different in different sports, let them assess it. I'm very happy for them to do that.
Mary in Cambridge, you're through to Sir Ed Davey. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Ed. I'm asking a question on behalf of 51% of the population. I'm a tactical voter and I would like to support the Lib Dems, but can you answer the question, what is a woman, please?
Well, thank you very much, Mary. I'm glad you're a tactical voter thinking of voting for us, so hope we can get you over the line. Let's see if you like my answer to the question. I mean, the truth is, Mary, the vast majority of people whose biological sex is a woman when they were birth, they feel they're women, so they get the same gender. They feel their gender the same as at birth. But there's a very small number of people who don't feel like that. And the law has recognised them for over 20 years now. So this is not a new issue. I know sometimes it seems, but the law has dealt with this in the right way. The Equality Act is there to, to allow there to be single-sex spaces, so people can have those single-sex spaces according to the law under the Equality Act. And what I want to do is answer your question directly, as I've done, Mary, but also to try and take some of the heat out of the question, because there's a small number of people who actually they have a tough time. They're harassed, discriminated against, real serious mental health problems. And I think we need to manage this and think about it and debate it with a bit more maturity and a bit more compassion.
Well, that's what Sir Keir Starmer once said to me, and he never did answer the question, can a woman have a penis?
Well, I've just answered that question.
They can.
Listen, I've made it really clear that if people, the vast majority of people will have the same gender as their biological sex, but a small number won't.
So a woman can have a penis?
Well, quite clearly.
Right, let's take a call from Kris in Richmond. Hello, Kris.
Daisy, hi. So I'm a Lib Dem voter. I used to be a member of the party, but I left a couple of years ago because I got fed up with the way the party was debating transgender issues and gender dysphoria. Can you help me understand why is it that the party just kicked out a woman for wearing a T-shirt saying adult human female, but existing members continue to receive abuse just for holding general gender critical views? And I'm more than happy to give you the example if you want, which is out there on social media.
Okay. So the first thing I would say on this issue is that for the vast majority of people, in the country identify with their gender with the sex that they're born with, and so the number of people that we're actually talking about who are transgender is incredibly small. And I have been surprised at the sort of the volume of debate and the vociferousness of the debate. And I think one of the things that's really important is that on shows like this and elsewhere in the country that we can have this debate in a civilised way, in a way that we can listen to all different points of view and debate them calmly. And I am very acutely aware that there are many spaces where this debate has become quite toxic and people on different sides of the debate.
It's become quite toxic within the Liberal Democrats, hasn't it? Because you've been banning people for things that most people wouldn't find offensive at all. I mean, you could sit here wearing a T-shirt saying adult human female because you are an adult, you are a human and you are female. Why would you shut someone out of a party for that?
So I would say that I think this debate has become toxic for every political party, and every political party is sort of working their way through how to manage it. The party's complaints process is entirely independent of politicians. MPs can't get involved in the complaints process, so I don't know the specific details of that. And there's also context. So if somebody's wearing, a T-shirt to make a statement and they're using it in a particular location or in a place, I don't know that is intimidating. That maybe that breaches some kind of code of conduct. I don't know the details of that specific case, but what I would say is that I think this is a tricky issue, and it's really important that we try and debate it in a calm way and try and take the toxicity out of it.
Kris?
Well, frankly, I'm afraid those are just weasel words, right? I will send you after this on Twitter the details involving an individual Lib Dem member being described as a pubic lice infestation for holding gender-critical views. The other point, Daisy, that really annoys me is that the party has done nothing over the last few years to call out the appalling lack of safeguarding when it comes to young people. Right, the Cassidy. Look at what happened at the Tavistock clinic, where basically teenagers were basically experimented on. Right, Munira did absolutely nothing about it when she was health spokesman. You've said nothing about it. The party is absolutely silent because it is scared and petrified of upsetting transgender voters. They've literally ruined young people's lives, right, by taking drugs. They've lost their fertility, right, and they seriously regret their decision. There's been serious changes in the NHS regarding the way we treat these patients, and the Lib Dems have said absolutely nothing.
I mean, that is a fair accusation, isn't it? And you are the party's health spokesperson.
So on the first issue, I've had to say to your caller, I don't endorse those kind of, that kind of name calling. I think it's really, distasteful. And anybody sees anybody calling other members with terms like that, our complaints process is published on our website, and I encourage people to go directly to the complaints process, which is independent, I say, of MPs. But please don't hesitate to use that process. It is out there for those kind of purposes.
I mentioned earlier the Conservative MP Angela Richardson, who was on Cross Question last night. Now, I asked her if she's concerned the Lib Dems could take the seat again at the next election, and this is relevant to this question, by the way, and this is how she replied.
52% of the voting population are women. The Lib Dems can't even define a woman. If they think they're going to get a vote on that basis and form the opposition party, they've got another thing coming.
You must have the odd night where something goes wrong for the government. You think, well, that's me done for.
The thing is, it's a choice for people between Rishi Sunak and Sir Keir Starmer. Not Ed Davey. Most people don't even know who Ed Davey is. They might have heard of him, but they've got no idea who he is. I know that he thinks a woman can have a penis.
Does he?
Do you know what? I think it's really disappointing that Conservative MPs are reducing our public debates down to culture wars. I think that's clearly what's going on here.
Interesting you mention women, because another issue that you confront, particularly as a Liberal, as someone proud of fighting for equality, is whether there is a clash between women's rights and trans rights. Not always, but in certain situations. Did the argument about a male rapist being sent to a women's prison give you pause for thought about how trans rights should be treated in this country?
Well, first of all, I think my overall position on the general topic is quite a simple one. The vast majority of people, they believe their gender is the same as their biological sex at birth. But there's a small number of people who don't. And for, I think it's over 20 years now, the law has recognised that. And what's been odd about this debate in recent times is it's sort of ignoring what the law's been there for 20 years. And I just hope that the debate can be taken in a rather more calm and sensitive way.
There is a gotcha question, the one that everybody asks you, which is, can a woman have a penis? I'm not asking.
But on the prison question,
here's a real question.
So let me come to, having explained the position and belief that we need to reduce some of the rhetoric in this area. On the prisoner issue, the truth was that prisoner involved hadn't even got a gender recognition certificate, and therefore you have to question why they were sent to a women's prison. And the risk assessment that should be done, and Liberal Democrats believe should be done in each case, didn't appear to have been done properly. So, when you look at this issue and you try and deal with the reality and the facts as opposed to some of the passionate rhetoric, I think one can just say, look, there should be a risk assessment. Of course there should be.
But it sounds to me like you've not thought again about this at all. The SNP have rethought it. The Labour Party have rethought it. There are plenty of people who say, look, we dismissed what are now known as gender-critical views. Have you not had to say, actually, I don't think J.K. Rowling is a bigot at all. She's actually representing proper fears of many women who fought for their rights and don't want to see them go?
Listen, I think we should listen to everyone in a democratic society and respect their views. That's why I believe we need to take the temperature out of this debate.
She got a point there, Jake.
And I think if we take the temperature out, we can listen to people who we don't agree with. We do that all the time in politics.